Andy, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you today?
Good. We have a unique topic here we're going to discuss, and it's something that's sort of come up from a lot of clients asking us about this through the years. So we just want to make an episode on it. That way people can reference it and take advice. And that is the topic of home gym equipment.
Yeah.
We get the question all the time, what equipment should I have and whatnot. And it's it's a unique question because everyone is different, right, in their abilities with fitness and their goals and their dedication. So we're going to dive into that today, hopefully give people a lot of information to use. But so the topic sort of came up from a demand from clients that were looking for ideas, recommendations. And then you and I have discussed how the right clients with the right equipment will see better progress at home instead of training, say, 1 day a week with us in the facility and taking 6 days off. If they're able to train at home correctly, that's a huge benefit. And then the last part for me with why we're doing this is it'll save people money. If you go onto Facebook Marketplace, how many pieces of equipment do you see on there that it says used once or never used? And that's how we got our Echo bike here in the gym. The Echo bike's like $800 or $900 new. I got it for $500 in Cheryl. A guy had used it once and he had bought it to rehab a hamstring injury.
Okay.
And he realized that the Echo bike isn't used to rehab hamstring injuries, and I got it for almost half price. So we want to save you with the frustration with that. So Andy, what's most interesting for you with this topic and why we're going to talk about it?
Well, we've got a lot of clients who want to work out at home. We have people that sign up to the gym, and some of them want to work out entirely at home. So we write workouts for them, and they're on their way to do that in the comfort of their own home. And then we have other clients that come to the gym and work out with a personal trainer, but they want to do extra at home. So there's just a lot of interest in our community. But I've also, as a trainer, and you've experienced the same thing, we've noticed that a lot of people don't have home gyms that are really adequate to do the kind of training that they want to do or see the results that they want to see. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to help people figure out how to create a home gym if it's right for them, something they can actually use and get something out of instead of just wasting money on a few pieces of equipment and, not being able to do an effective workout.
The Co-Movement Gym podcast is supported by Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention this podcast or click on the links in the episode description for a nice discount on us. Yeah, you mentioned something there I want to dive into is you had said if working out at home is right for them.
Yeah.
You and I talked yesterday briefly on that, and we want people exercising and moving, their bodies as much as possible. But there's some prerequisites, right? With working out at home, like you need to be doing the right exercises. You need to be using the correct form, the right weights. We both know plenty of people that do more damage than good working out on their own.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like our professional disclaimer is like, it's not just as easy as listening to this podcast with you and I listing out this great equipment and then you're going to absolutely know what to do with it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You still need a coach, you still need direction, but yes, having some useful things at home to assist and supplement what we teach you or another coach teaches you is a big piece here.
Yeah, and that's how I wanted to start this podcast because you had come up with the idea of, well, let's tell people what equipment they need to buy if they want to have a good home gym. And my first thought was, is a home gym right for you to begin with? Because it sounds like such a great idea. People think of working out at home and it's like, oh man, like I don't have to drive to the gym, especially if it's snowy and winter time and I don't want to leave the house. I can do it on my own schedule, on my own free time. It's just convenient. When I get done working out, I'm already at home. I can shower and just eat dinner. So people, it's one of those things that sounds great initially, and everyone is kind of like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I work out at home? That's the way to do it. But I think there's a lot of challenges to working out at home. And so I just wanted to cover some of those before we get into telling people how to construct a home gym. So, like, for example, lack of equipment. So that's today's topic. If you go to a gym, you're going to have pretty much endless equipment to choose from, and usually it's high quality equipment as well. At home, you're going to have to buy it all yourself, and people usually get it kind of, one at a time, piecemeal. And how many times have we had clients that say they want to work out at home, but all they have are like these 3 dumbbells and a yoga mat,
all the
and
time.
yeah, that happens all the time. Maybe they have a pull-up bar they've put in their door frame or something, and it's like, well, if you come to our gym, we've got 30 times more equipment than that, and it's probably going to be more useful for a good workout. Lack of space is a big one. I think people really need to consider this before thinking if they want a home gym. I mean, gym equipment takes up a lot of space, and a lot of the movements that we do take up a lot of space. So are you going to be able to put it in your house somewhere? It's not going to go in your living room, probably. It's not going to go in your dining room. Like, maybe you have a spare room and you're thinking that's going to be your home gym, but how big is that? Is it going to fit everything that you want and that you need for a good workout? Or are you going to get all this stuff and then feel really crammed and not want to do the exercises? Basements and garages tend to be pretty good, but then you've got issues like, how low are the ceilings in your basement? Can you even hang a pull-up bar or do things like that? Can you do, I went down to my basement. If I was going to do an overhead press in my basement, the weights would hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
So
Here.
there's issues there. In your garage, you might want to use it for your car. So is that something you want to convert? And then things like, you already mentioned lack of coaching. That's one of the biggest issues, because I would say if you want to have a home gym, I hope that you feel confident that you know the different exercises and that you know what good form and good technique looks like. If you have a coach working with you in the gym, they're watching you all the time. They can correct your form, make sure you're using the right weights, things like that, make adjustments to your program as needed. So do you feel like you can take care of all that yourself? Because I worry a lot of times when I write workouts for clients who work out at home, I find out a month later when they give me their feedback on the workout that they were doing an exercise incorrectly, or there's just a completely wrong exercise or something like that. So that's a big issue. Lack of accountability, I think, is a big one, because when you're signed up at a gym, you might not want to work out that day, but you've got a session planned, your trainer's going to be there, and you go. People who work out at home, something we've found is it's really easy to skip a workout if you don't feel like working out that day. Or the bigger one is a lot of my home clients, they actually do their workouts, so give them credit there, but skipping exercises.
Yeah.
You're doing a workout program and you like this exercise, you like this one, you like this one. Oh, but there's rear leg elevated split squats. I hate those. And then they skip the one exercise they don't like, or maybe half-ass it, only do a 1 set when they're supposed to do 3 or whatever. And then missing other benefits of the gym, like the whole social component, like meeting other health-minded individuals and getting ideas from them and getting inspiration from them and motivation. Like, we have a great community at our gym, and if you work out at home, you miss that. So all of those things on top of that is the expense. Like you mentioned, you save money working out at home. Eventually, in the long run, maybe, but gym memberships, they're not that expensive. Personal training can get a little expensive, but the amount of money that you have to spend on home gym equipment is a lot more than I think a lot of people expect when they want to buy when they want to make a home gym. You get in pretty deep into the thousands of dollars, especially if you want a nice home gym. It can be over $10,000. So then are you really saving money? So I want everyone to consider all that stuff before they think that working out at home is the best route for them, and it is for some people, but consider all that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I'll add one more thing too. Like, you had mentioned the basement and the garage. I've done all of that through the years. I actually, one time I was in between houses that I was living, and I was working out in a storage unit on College Hill, just up from Hamilton College. I was working at, like, it just sucked. And so, like, training in basements sucks
It,
unless you
it
have
sucks
real.
because why? What was the issue there?
Because the apartment that I was living in between homes, it was like 400 square feet, and there was
Okay,
zero. I had all this gym equipment. I had no place to put it or work out,
so
and
it's
I
lack
ended
of
up
space.
renting a storage unit for it. But like, your space needs to be comfortable. It needs
That
to be
too.
bright, warm. There are some psychos out there that like the whole dungy cold, and I traveled that route years ago too. But for the average person, I'm telling you, if your space isn't inviting, you're not going to want to be in there 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week. You're just not. You're not going to
Well, I'll
force
say it a
yourself.
different way. Instead of your space being comfortable, it needs to be a space that you want to work out in.
Yeah.
Like you want to like see that home gym, and that's a place that you want to work out. Because on the comfort thing, like you, I've worked out in my basement that was like dingy and dirty and had spiders in it and stuff. And I had the time of my life when I was like, in my late teens and early
Yes.
20s, and that was I wanted to work out there. I don't want to work out there right now, but
No.
yeah, your space needs to be a space that you want to work out in. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's a quick example of that. Like, I bought a bike trainer to ride this winter, and first time I've ever done that. And I put it in my basement. We have a nice basement. We have tall ceilings. We have 2 windows. We have lights. It's a newer home,
Mhm.
um, but it's still a basement.
Yep.
And like, I struggled with those rides, like just 60 minutes on the trainer, even with my phone and YouTube or music. Like,
Mhm.
it just still sucked. Like, I'm staring at a wall by myself. Like I said, the lighting's good, but it's nothing like at our facility. So, yeah, I really want to emphasize, like, where you're going to invest and put your equipment and that money, put it in a space that you want to be in. Because if you don't, it's not going to last long term. And that's what we care about. That weakness you're noticing isn't just about age. It's about giving your body the right protein to maintain your strength and independence. While most protein supplements lead to bloating and digestive issues after 50, grass-fed beef protein is different. Unlike whey and plant-based protein that can cause uncomfortable digestive problems, grass-fed beef protein is a dairy-free source of complete protein, which means it gives you all the building blocks your body needs in a form that it can actually use. Getting more native path complete protein in your diet helps maintain muscle strength without the stomach issues that make other proteins unbearable. So if you're looking for a delicious way to add more high quality protein to your diet, look no further than Native Path Complete Protein. At only 110 calories per serving, each scoop packs 20 grams of grass-fed beef protein and contains 0 sugar, dairy, soy, and gluten. It's available in chocolate and vanilla and tastes unbelievable in anything you add it to: water, coffee, smoothies, you name it. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 bags at a fraction of the price of other brands. Plus, they offer a 360-day no-risk money-back guarantee and an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients. And you'll speak to a real person that's ready to help. Visit nativepathcompleteprotein.com/co-movement and start your transformation today. Again, that is nativepathcompleteprotein.com/co-movement.
So the next
Um,
part can be, if you want to get onto it, is like if you've considered all those things and you still think that a home gym is right for you and that you would use it, then we can get into what equipment someone should buy to have a good home gym.
yeah, that's great. And you mentioned, and I want to emphasize it, like, good equipment's expensive. I think people are sort of shocked when they talk to you and I about, like, oh, what should I get? And we throw out some ideas and some pricing, and it, yeah, personal training is not super cheap, but if you add that in with the convenience of the facility and coaching and knowledge, and not investing $1,000 to $10,000 on stuff you may or may not continue to use. So, just a disclaimer there, some of this stuff is expensive. So, um,
Josh, one thing just popped in my mind about one more thing to consider.
mhm.
It's funny. hopefully the biggest benefit of getting a personal trainer is the professional coaching, good programming, and they're checking your technique and all that. But I will say one of the things that I think people don't consider, that a lot of the clients at the gym really like, and that messes up people who try to work out at home, is that your trainer sets up the stuff for you.
Yeah. So
Like,
true.
yeah, when people come to the gym, I've got exercises I want them to do, and I'm loading the plates on the barbell and I'm getting out the equipment. And I mean, it's a workout just to set up a few exercises for a client
Yeah.
sometimes. And then when I see them try to set it up themselves, it
Yep.
becomes a long, complicated process of them lugging weights around the gym. And that can be enough to deter you from wanting to work out at home.
Yeah.
When someone else just sets it all up for you and says, there you go, you're ready to go, and then they take it down for you and clean up afterwards, that's actually a big convenience of going to a gym, and you got to do all that stuff at home. So think about that too.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that, but that maybe that's why I sleep really good at night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a physical job.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. All right. So what I did, not sure what you did, Andy, on your end, but I sort of broke it up into 3 packages. I did a budget package, which is under $1,000,
Mhm.
intermediate package, which was under 2,000, and then a gold package, which was under 5,000. Is that sort of close to what you did, or?
Yeah, you mentioned that you were going to do that, so I categorized into low budget, mid budget, high budget,
Okay.
and
All right. So yeah.
yeah, something. I thought this was going to be really difficult for a couple of doing this podcast, like writing this, was a good exercise for me, because at first I thought it was going to be really tough, because it's like, different people have different abilities and different goals, and depending on what equipment would I recommend for a 21-year-old football player,
Mhm.
they're probably going to need like a power rack or something at home and some really heavy weights, versus a 55-year-old, someone who wants to just lose 10 pounds and get a little bit in shape. They're going to need different equipment. Something I found, though, going through this, was the equipment that I would recommend to this person is almost the same stuff that I would
Yep.
recommend to that person.
Me too.
Yeah, the core essentials, that's my low budget category, is like just the core essentials that everyone needs. Is kind of the same whether you're a young athlete or a 60, 70-year-old just trying to maintain the health that you have.
Yeah, I came across the same thing. I was thinking I'd have to get real fancy with the list, with like, say, more athlete based
Right,
clients
broken
versus.
down into like demographics, and you don't actually have to do that.
Now, well, if you look at even our facility, while we do have a lot of choices here, it's still really basic stuff. Like there's not complicated machines and, weird things. So
Yeah, because the
yeah,
best equipment that's essential for one person is essential for the other person too, no matter who you are, pretty much.
that's a great point. All right, so let's talk budget. This is probably where most people will be that are listening to this. So I started out with a squat cage that has a pull-up bar integrated into it.
Yeah.
You can go to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I think for $300, you could buy a cage that's like steel, and it has the safety pins on there, so you don't kill yourself bench pressing or squatting. And it has a pull-up bar. Now, why is that pull-up bar so important? It's way safer than the doorway pull-up bar that you spend $25 on Amazon. You can hang rings off of it, which is huge, because what if you can hang the rings off that bar, you can do now all the ring exercises, or most of them. And it takes up a small footprint. I think they're like 3.5 feet by 4 feet. Like, it's not bad. And I think they're 7.5 feet tall. So it does fit in a basement, or most basements, and they're easy to put together. So $300 for that, and then you got to throw the rings in there. The rings come with the straps. I recommend wooden rings versus the metal ones. The metal ones are really slippery. You're going to pay more, but they're only about $70. And then dumbbells, you could spend anywhere from $50 to $500. But again, we're only right now at $370. So if you wanted to get a $500 pair of dumbbells, you're still under $1,000. And so why dumbbells over barbell? I just think they're way more useful. They appeal to more people. They're safer. You know, it's easier to move around in your room versus a 7-foot steel bar that you're going to punch holes through sheetrock with. And so then on top of that, the last thing would be a ruck vest. I'm a huge fan of rucking. You can get a cheap vest at Dick's Sporting Goods for $40, or you can go all the way up to $300. And so there's a little bit of a lever here for people. Let's say you spend $200 for dumbbells. Maybe you do have the budget still up to that $1,000 mark to spend $300 on a really nice ruck vest, or maybe you spend the $500 on dumbbells and want to spend $40 on the ruck vest. But the ruck vest, while some people will get into like, oh, I could do squats with it, or I can run with it, or this or that. Yeah, you can do that kind of stuff. You can do pull-ups with it, but I like rucking. You know, I think it's a great exercise for pretty much everybody. So
can you explain to people, I was just going to say what a ruck vest is and what rucking is. They might not know.
Yeah. So it's a vest that you put on, like a shirt that weighs anywhere from 10 pounds to 50 pounds. You can have them customized online with the weights, the plates, the colors, all of that. I primarily do walks, brisk walks, and hikes with a ruck vest. It is now, they've studied this now quite a bit. Like, it's one of the top exercises. I'm not going to say for longevity, but just for healthy physical being, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's load bearing, your heart rate is higher, leg strength, posture. There's a lot of benefits to weighted walks.
Yeah.
And so for something that costs so little that you could do 1 to 3 days a week, there's a huge ROI with that, and it doesn't take up any space. You could throw it in the corner of your bedroom.
Yep.
So I have that ruck vest in all my packages.
And I love that for someone who wants to do some cardio work, you know, some aerobic work, which everyone should do, but they don't want to like run or bike or something like that. Like they like going for walks maybe. But we'd like to see them do a little more work on their walk and maybe get more benefit from it. And rucking is the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it really is. So I'm assuming you've got a few different things on that, Andy, on your list?
Yeah. So two of the things that are the same was I said at the bare minimum, you need a pull-up bar. We need something that we can hang from. It's so important for overall health. And so hanging is one thing. At the bare minimum, a pull-up bar, preferably rings. And I said that the rings could substitute a pull-up bar. I'd like you to have both because they do have different purposes sometimes. But if you can get rings, they're a little more versatile because you can hang from them. You can lower them to the ground and do ring planks and push-ups on them and things like that. And I'd like people to be able to do rowing of some sort, you know, like ring rows, one-arm ring rows, and more advanced ring work if they're more advanced in their abilities. So yeah, I'm right there with you on the rings and the pull-up bar. I love that you said the squat cage. I think that was not on my list actually, because I was trying to keep the low budget as I could, and then I ended up putting the squat cage in the mid budget. But since you said, would you say you could find a squat cage for at Dick's like $400 or $500?
No, $300. They have one for $299.
Then I would call that an essential for the low budget. Absolutely, because now you've got the ability to squat and you've got the ability to do bench presses in there. And like you said, you can actually hang rings from it. And as long as it's got that pull-up bar attachment, now you've got the pull-up bar too. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Those were exactly the same on that. The next one on my list was dumbbells. Same reason as you. I saved the barbells for the mid-budget stuff.
Yep.
But dumbbells are just so much more versatile. And here people have the option of trying to get a whole dumbbell set where you have all the individual weights, which takes up a ton of space and costs a lot of money. That's ideal. That's one of the benefits you get of coming to the gym is we have all the dumbbells. But at home, you can get the adjustable dumbbell sets that range from like 2.5 all the way up to 50 or 60 pounds, just with like a little turn of a knob, you can change the weight. And when I was pricing those out, they usually go for anywhere from like $300 to $600, something like that. Like you said, with home gym, well, actually, I'll just say, when it comes to home gym equipment, I think one good piece of advice is if you can buy the higher quality stuff,
Yeah.
it's just going to last you longer and it's going to be more durable. It's going to feel better. So if you can spend an extra couple hundred on a good set of adjustable dumbbells, I'd go that route. The only other things I had, did you have anything else on your low budget or was that the end of yours?
No, I just had those 4 items. Yeah.
Yep. The only other three things that I put on there, just because they're very cheap and anyone can pick these up for next to nothing. Bands. I don't love bands and I don't use them too often. Mostly I use them when I don't have equipment that would be better than a band. But if you're at a home gym, you might not have a cable machine that you can do a certain exercise on, but you could do it with a band that's just hooked up to your squat cage.
Mm-hmm.
And they're super cheap, so why not? They come in handy every now and then for certain things. Possibly a yoga mat if there's something that you want to like be able to sit on to do stretches and things like that, or crunches. And then the other one was a jump rope. If you want to jump rope, it's a great exercise, great skill to learn. Great way to do a little bit of cardio without having to go anywhere, just a 10 foot by 10 foot space. And jump ropes are super cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. The for some reason I put the jump rope in under the gold package, even though it's $25.
Well, you know why you did that? You probably did the same thing as me. At first, I was going to do low budget, mid budget, and high budget, which is how I have it written down here. But as I was going, I realized that I would recommend all of the low budget stuff for everyone. So the way this really works for me is I've got this low budget stuff, which are the essentials. And then the mid budget is basically get all the low budget stuff. And then you can add these few extras. And then the high budget is get all the low and mid budget stuff. And then you can add these few extras.
That's just what I did too.
So the low budget is all just like the core things that you need. And then mid budget and high budget is just how many flashy extras do you want to get to add to that?
Yeah, that's so true. I did the same thing. So yeah,
so I figured jump rope for $25 could go on the low budget.
Yeah, no, and jump rope is a phenomenal exercise for people. All right, intermediate package under $2,000. So Andy just said it. I'm gonna do all the same stuff: the squat cage, the rings, set of dumbbells, and then the ruck vest, and then I'm gonna throw in there a rower or an echo bike.
This is what, mid-budget now?
Yeah, mid-budget under 2,000. Yep. So we spent 1,000 on the budget package, and now we have an extra $1,000 to play with. I think the rower is a phenomenal tool to the arsenal. If you like biking more, we really enjoy the Echo Bike, the Rogue Echo Bike here at the gym. Hundreds of workouts that you could do forever, your entire life. And these pieces of equipment don't break. The Echo Bike and the rowers, well, the Echo Bike we've had for maybe 2 or 3 years. Nothing's been wrong with it. And then the rowers, I've had rowers for 15 years. I literally do nothing, but I just oil the chain and there's no maintenance to them at all. So you spend your $1,000 and you have something forever. And that, a lot of people don't like running, which I get that. And they don't have access to swimming. And so rowing and biking or one or the other is phenomenal. So that's the only difference with my intermediate package.
It's just adding the either the rower or the Echo Bike or like that. And I kind of went the same. This is where it depends on your goals a little bit, because I would say for the mid-budget. So with my mid-budget and high budget, I wasn't sure where to put these. I ended up putting the rower and the Echo Bike in, or a treadmill if you're into running instead, in the high budget area, because I thought those were a little more specialized. Like maybe only invest in a treadmill if you're interested in running and you can use it a lot. They cost $1,500, $2,000, and it's just a matter of like how much are you interested in doing cardio. And how much do you think you're going to do that versus how much are you more interested in strength training? True. So with the mid budget, for me, I was like, do I put the cardio equipment in there or do I put like a barbell and that stuff in there? So I decided to go with the barbell. We've already got the squat cage. So
Hmm.
now I'm saying add an Olympic barbell to that and some a bumper plate set,
Hmm.
45s, 35s, 25s, 10s. Now you can do deadlifts, squats, all that kind of stuff with your squat cage, bench presses.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, for me, the mid-budget set had the barbell and the bumper plates, um, which I don't know the cost on those. Let me see. A barbell is about $200. A
Hmm.
bumper plate set, I think I've got about $500 for the full set. So that
Hmm.
keeps us under the thousand that we'd have to add for the mid budget. And then the other thing that I put in, because it keeps us right in that thousand mark, maybe if you get a cheaper one. So these can go anywhere from $300 to $500. Is possibly a lat tower if you were interested in adding one machine.
Sure.
I've talked to you about this a lot. My biggest frustration with home workouts is it's hard to do pulling
Yeah.
exercises.
So
We can,
true.
we can do lots of pushing. We can do, dumbbell bench press, overhead press, push ups, all that kind of stuff. But pulling exercises are hard to program for people at home. Now, if you have the rings and a pull up bar and you're able to do chin ups, or you're able to rig up some bands in a way where you can do assisted chin ups, then okay, great. We can do some pulling at home. But we have a lot of clients, and there's a lot of people out there that can't do a chin up or a pull up, and they're kind of a long way from it. So even with the rings, they've got ring rows they can do, but I'm really lacking in pulling exercises. So I kind of think that if you're in that mid budget category and you're willing to buy one piece of or one machine, a lat tower doesn't take up much space. It's just I mean, it's really about 2 feet wide by maybe 3 feet deep, and it's just a tower with a pulley on the top, and that pulley should adjust all the way down to the bottom as well. And that way, you can do lat pull downs, one arm lat pull downs, variations on all those with different grips. You can lower the pulley down and do seated rows, that kind of thing. And you
Hmm.
can put the pulley at mid distances and do all sorts of shoulder exercises and stuff, including even some hip exercises like glute kickbacks and hip abductions. So I think that's a machine that doesn't take up much space. You can usually get them for under 500. And for a lot of people working out at home, they give you a lot of exercises that you just can't do otherwise, even if you have the rings and pull up bar.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, my mid budget package was barbell, bumper plate set, and maybe a lat tower if you can't do chin ups and pull ups and you really want to balance out your training.
Yeah, I love those ideas. And you nailed it. And that's an important topic too, is the lack of pulling.
You run into this too with training clients at home, right?
Time and time again, they have a pair of 15-pound dumbbells. They can't do chin-ups on their, doorway pull-up bar, and they have a band.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like we could get into plank variations and some push-ups and different things and air squats and lunges and split squats, but there's no pulling.
Right.
And you and I are huge advocates of pulling over pushing in most
Mhm.
circumstances.
Yeah, you used to
um
say you try to program almost a 2-to-1 ratio of
yep,
pulling to pushing, mainly
correct.
because people neglect pulling so much that they need to,
Yeah.
correct that imbalance.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And because
and
it's so important.
I don't want to skim over what you just said, that ratio, but this is a free training tip for people. But a 2-to-1 ratio of pulling to pushing with the whole body,
Mhm.
deadlifts, all of the lower and upper pulling, we like a 2-to-1 ratio. And the reason being, the muscle groups are bigger and more powerful. You
Mhm.
take someone with strong glutes, strong scapula,
Yep.
versus the big pecs and big biceps guy at the Globo gym. Like, I'll take the person with the big glutes and the strong back any day for full
Yeah.
body
Yeah. Well
strength.
developed, hamstrings and glutes are going to go so far for you to prevent back pain and stuff, as well as the well developed, like, mid and lower traps and rhomboids, and
Yep.
we're going to correct a lot of postural issues there and prevent a lot of shoulder pain when you develop that mid and upper back.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of our culture is just rounded forward, maybe because they've done too many pushing exercises, not enough pulling, but also just because of our lifestyle of sitting and
Yeah.
bad posture and stuff, and all these pulling exercises that target the back of the body, even though that's not something you can see on the beach necessarily. That's it goes a long way towards your health, further I think than most of the pushing exercises.
Yeah, well, you six pack on the back.
Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
we say. And the funny thing is, like, you can't see it on the beach, but everyone
Other
else
people
can.
can.
And you see a guy or a girl walking down the beach with a 3D back.
Mhm.
Um, that'll draw your attention. You see enough people all the time with the big pecs and the big biceps, but the rest of their body is sort of hollow, right?
Mhm.
They got the skinny legs, they got no traps, no back. Like, yeah, the person's done some bench and some curls, but as far as like an overall 3D athlete, or a healthy human,
Mhm.
um, yeah, look at that upper back, low back, and glutes, and you can tell a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Did you
um,
did you by the way, I'm wondering if you put barbell and bumper plate set in yours anywhere. Is that in the so
uh,
yeah, you just kind of left that one out completely.
and it's not like, obviously I'm a huge fan of that,
Okay.
and I don't disagree with that. I'm just looking at the generalists, right?
Right.
Like the 45-year-old that wants to feel better and live longer and be stronger.
Yep.
But yeah, like, can that 45-year-old use a barbell? Absolutely. Like you said, deadlifts and squats and like all the variations, and there's a lot there. So yes, I'm very
Hey,
pro barbell.
you just made
Yeah.
a good point though. Like even though we're coming up with this list that is a good general recommendation, it still is going to come down to each individual.
Yeah.
There are many clients I have that if they were building a home gym, I would definitely have them get a rowing machine, a Concept
Mm,
2 rower instead of a barbell set. I would never recommend them get a barbell set. I've got clients who are squatting their body weight. They don't need a 45-pound Olympic bar, let alone plates to put on it.
yep.
And they're bench pressing, dumbbell bench pressing with the 15 and 20-pound dumbbells. They don't need the barbell for bench pressing. So it
Yeah.
really does come down to where you are in your fitness journey and what your abilities are as far as which of these two roads you would take here.
Yeah, and also know, with that being said, they make different weights of barbells, right? So at the gym here, we have a 15-pound barbell, we have a 35-pound barbell, and we have
Yep.
45-pound barbells. Most people, when they hear barbell, they're like, whoa, 45 pounds, like, that's a bit much for me, or that bar is a little intimidating. There's lighter bars,
Yep.
those lighter bars at our gym get used just as much as the 45-pounder.
Oh yeah.
So you can buy a really nice $150 15-pound bar from Rogue that'll last you a lifetime. And if you're lifting a 15-pound bar, most likely you're not overloading it with weight, right?
Right.
And so that setup there, can last a long time, and you can be a lot safer too. A
Yep.
15-pound bar on your back versus 45, depending on the person, is a huge difference.
Yeah, and actually, so you just said another thing that reminded me of something I wanted to say, which is that this list I've come up with, you don't need to get everything on it. Like you said, instead of the 45-pound bar, it could be the
Yeah.
15-pound bar. And then I've got this bumper plate set, which would be about $500, but that includes 45s, 35s, 25s, and 10s. You might be someone who only needs the 25s and the 10s and a couple
Yes.
fives. So
Yes.
this list that I've made here with the barbell and bumper plate set, it might cost $700 if you want to get the whole thing, but you might find you only need half of that. So you might get
Yep.
your barbell and bumper plates for $300, and now you can get your lat tower.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll add to that even. A, a lot of times when we're entering into the world of barbell work, a lot of people think two-legged, two-arm type work, right? Um, think about unilateral movements, like single leg, single arm type work, more single leg with a barbell. But you can get a lot of really, really good strengthening movements with a barbell doing single leg movements, right? Lunges, single leg deadlifts, posted deadlifts, split squats, reverse lunges with the bar overhead, right? So for the person that says, oh, I need 400 pounds of plates, I'm going to want that same person to say, instead of going to spend $1,000 on bumpers, like, are you really exploring all the different realms of exercises that you can do? And in our experience, the answer to that is no for most
Yeah,
people.
there's harder variations you can do that are going to require far less weight.
Yeah,
So maybe you can work on
absolutely.
those instead of buying the heavier weights for the variations you can already do.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's go on now to the gold package. And I did under 5,000. Look, if your budget's more than that, have at it. So I went with the original, somewhat here. So I went with the rings. I went with a rower or an echo bike or both. Jump rope I added in, the dumbbells I kept in the ruck vest. But this is sort of my outlier in what I did here.
Yeah.
Um, the cable machine that we have at the gym, it's
Yep.
Jacked Up Fitness is the brand.
Mhm.
That by far is probably used the most out
Yep.
of all the equipment here. Now it's not just cables. There's a pull-up bar on there. There's safety pegs for squatting. There's a Smith machine. There's dip bars. There's like, I joke because you are always making up amazing exercises with this. There's probably 250 exercises on
Yeah.
this piece of equipment. And cables, even though I just said it's not all cables, but cables in and of themselves are safer. It's not as hard on the joints in many cases. There's so many cool variations for all ages. I am now totally sold on that, and we're not being obviously paid by Jacked Up Fitness. You could buy whatever cable setup you want, but that's about 2,500 bucks. And like I said, you probably get 200 or more exercises if you get creative. I think the
Mhm.
company says you get like 40 or 50 exercises with it. But yeah, 2,500 bucks. I would throw a bench in there. And then the additional $2,000 package that I just described. And with that setup, it, you have, I don't know, that's pretty much, unless you're a specialty athlete with something, that there's a lot there.
Yep. I yeah, I went the same route as you. So the nice thing too, when you get the functional trainer, is now that replaces the lat tower. So
Yep.
if you didn't want the lat tower from the mid budget package, which like I said, you can get for maybe $300-500. If you want to upgrade to this functional trainer instead, it's got the lat pull down on it, so you don't need that lat tower. But the functional trainers are going to run anywhere from like 2,000 upwards to, you can get them for six, seven, eight
Yeah.
thousand dollars. They got
Yeah.
some really nice ones. But I did say if you're looking for a high budget gym, you're willing to spend the money, then getting a functional trainer, or sometimes they're called total gyms.
Yep.
You can find some really nice ones out there. I was actually shopping around like just in preparation for this podcast, and found some that are like in the $5,000 or $6,000 range, but it's like, geez, it really does everything that you could possibly want.
Yeah.
If you get like a few attachments for it too. So you can get a really nice unit like that if that's your budget. The other thing that I put on was again, just playing around because we've got more of a budget here, was something like a Nordic bench.
Oh yeah.
And I really like, and this is only for people who think that they would use this kind of thing, but there's a model out there that I've seen. It's a company called Freak Athlete, and they make one called the Hyper Pro. This one costs $900, but then you can get an attachment for it for $300. So $1,200, and the attachment allows you to do legs as well. So you can do leg curls and leg extensions, which if you want that sort of thing and it's in your budget, then that's an option. But what a Nordic bench does is, especially one that's kind of adjustable and versatile, like this Freak Athlete Hyper Pro one, which I'm not advertising. We don't know that company, but a Nordic bench will allow you to do back extensions, any of the GHD exercises, so GHD hamstring curls, that sort of thing. It's adjustable so that you can do those exercises from a lot of different angles. So if you're
Yeah.
beginner or advanced, you can find the right thing for you. Boy, you can do some other things on it too. Various forms of like sit-ups and ab exercises and stuff. It's a great machine that doesn't take up a ton of space. It's roughly $1,000. I'd love to see that in some home gyms if they have the budget for it, but that kind of comes as a luxury at the end, I think.
Yeah, we're looking at that here. You'd mentioned wanting to get that. We have the really nice GHD,
Yeah.
the Rogue GHD piece of equipment here, which we use a ton. But it's interesting. Like, I think they're comparable in price, but it takes up a smaller footprint.
Much
And there
smaller
is,
footprint, and it's super adjustable.
yeah,
Like 15 different angles you can
yeah.
choose. Yeah. Some of the
Yeah.
GHD exercises are very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Even if you're an advanced athlete, let alone like intermediate or beginner.
Hmm.
So having like the adjustability of one of these Nordic benches that has several adjustable settings could be really useful for people getting into that kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, the GHD was made popular with CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when CrossFit had started, everyone was that was using it was an athlete.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the GHD became really popular with that. But yeah, that the adjustments are huge.
Yeah,
So
one of the
we're
reasons
gonna
I
head out
like
with
that
that.
is one of the reasons I like that piece of equipment is we need to do a lot of work on our posterior chain. You've already mentioned like the glutes and hamstrings that um, people don't do enough work on and should probably learn how to use better and then strengthen,
Hmm.
as well as your back, which we already touched on before. And sometimes posterior chain work is really hard to do at home. We can do things like deadlifts, and we can do things like a glute kickback if you've got a cable system, stuff like that. Um, but it starts to get a little tricky to come up with more exercises
Yeah.
beyond just those. And these GHD machines or Nordic benches allow you to do tons of different posterior chain work. And I think it's just an important piece that if you can fit it into your home gym somewhere, it'll be really useful for you.
Yeah. That's a good point. Anything else, Andy, for the gold package?
Well, just a high budget is where I stuck the
Yeah.
Echo Bike and rower or
Okay.
optional treadmill, whatever your cardio preference is there.
Hmm.
But that also depends on like you probably your climate you live in. We live in upstate New York. It's cold, it's snowy and stuff. So having a way to do cardio inside is nice. But depending on where you are listening to this, if you can go for a walk outside all year, then maybe you can skip that piece.
Yeah. Don't get us wrong here for everyone listening. Like Andy and I love training outside,
Yes,
but
that's what we prefer.
unfortunately, 6 to 7 months out of the year, we both like it warm to
Yeah,
train. You know, we're not like Bob there that loves the high peaks in January.
I don't know how he does it. Yeah, I
I
can't get
know.
myself to run outside if it's below 50, and he's out there like doing 5,000 foot mountains when it's negative 20 degrees and snowing.
So true. All right, so let's I just made a list here for people on where they could buy stuff. Obviously you could buy things wherever you want, but this is just a reference. Rogue Fitness, we've had great luck with them. They're not cheap,
Mm-hmm.
but their steel and their bolts are definitely much thicker and higher quality than a lot of competitors, so you do pay more, but this is like commercial grade type equipment that's going to literally last forever. And resale value with Rogue stuff. Like I have bought and sold stuff through the years as we've upgraded and changed strategies, and I sell things like with one post on Facebook Marketplace. So Rogue Fitness is good. Titan Fitness is
Yep.
excellent. I've bought stuff from Titan. Similar quality, maybe a little bit more residential. They do have a lot of commercial too. Just sometimes cheaper than Rogue, sometimes not, but Titan you could check out. Facebook Marketplace and garage sales.
Yeah.
Our whole first gym there, garage gym, at our other location was all garage sale stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's all I had the budget for. But it worked. You can find a lot of stuff that was lightly used there. And like I said, I just got the Echo Bike on Marketplace. Dick's Sporting Goods. While a lot of the equipment I don't recommend, there are certain things that are really good there. And again, on the cheaper end. And then for ruck vests, you're going to pay the premium, but it's going to last forever is Go Ruck. That's my vest. I think the vest was 135 to 155.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you get the weight in there is up to you. You can buy their weight that custom fits the vest.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, those aren't cheap plates. They're custom cut to fit that vest pocket. What I did, I hacked it. My friend Chris White in Brookfield is a welder. I just measured the pockets, and then I looked up this calculator for essentially weight. So I put in the length, the width, and the thickness of steel in a calculator, and I put in 3/4 inch thickness by 9 inch wide, 11 inches long, and it was 22 and a half pounds for the plate of steel. I sent a text message to Chris. He laser cut it, charged me $60. And I did 2 of them. So I have a 45-pound vest, and they slipped in there perfect. It probably saved $150. So I guess it depends who you know with that choice. But Andy, do you have any other place you'd want to push people for equipment?
No, the ones you mentioned are the same ones I would go to. So that's perfect right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Cool. All right. Well,
I don't you mentioned them earlier, but Jacked Up Fitness is pretty good for the lat towers and functional trainers, that kind of thing. But there's other companies out there that make great ones too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully this is helpful for everyone. And yeah, check us out, co-movement.com for professional coaching. And we'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Your support helps us to bring you 2 new episodes each month. See the show notes for more details and a nice discount from our sponsors. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co-Movement Gym Podcast.